do wanna make that one motion.
You have an hour and 10 minutes. Just
All right, so we can do some more discussions on the budget when we get to budget deliberation. We can make another motion there and go from there. Let's move on to sponsorship policy, page 18.
Make a motion.
Okay,
The council approves the sponsorship and in-kind donation policy number 71-2015.
okay,
I like the fact that we're heading down a road to handle these things. What I really don't like is the $15,000 price tag. After the discussions we've just had and the frustrations with all that, why are we giving away $15,000? We can't as the council. Sorry. I like the policy so we can handle things in the future. $15,000 to give away to people? No, not a chance.
okay.
And again, it isn't saying we have to give it away, but we already have earmarked $5,000 for the charity golf tournament that is coming up in August, so that's only $10,000. And at this point, if we don't use it, we don't use it. So, and again, it would be coming out of the existing legislative budget. It's not new money. We would be living within our means.
So yeah, this is just the policy, not the money part of it, so, but, go ahead.
I was of the understanding that in this policy, we were also approving the $15,000.
I don't believe
That's
that's,
already approved by another motion. This is just the policy.
this is just the policy on how to handle anything that's not a grant like we've been dealing with the other ones. This is adding that sponsorship category. Deputy Mayor?
I think we really need a policy to deal with these issues that come up, but I think we need to include in this policy what we can do for those events that come to town. And Councillor Rose has suggested on many occasions free advertising on the website, free advertising on the sign. I guess that's the in-kind part of that.
Well,
right?
then I guess that's it. Do we have a sponsorship policy or do we have an in-kind donation policy? Where we, as a council, say we're not going to give taxpayers dollars as sponsorships. We're not going to purchase sponsorships and become a title sponsor and get a sign out there and get free tickets and the things that come to as a sponsorship recipient, and just say that we can then help all groups that fit into the criteria, nonprofit groups, like we, wouldn't be for every event for anybody, but for the ones that fit into our criteria, we can offer them electronic signage, we can offer them website advertising, or like an opportunity to, we can offer them things that don't necessarily cost the taxpayer, but that still support their events. Because I do think that we support all the events and we support all these nonprofit groups. It's just, we have to make a decision as to whether we can afford to give money away that are taxpayer. And where I struggle is that, well, two things. One, I find it takes a lot of time. We spend a lot of time on sponsorships at every meeting. Every meeting there seems to be somebody else that needs money for some event, and we have to make a decision and how much is being given and who's going to do what. That we're going to run out of money before we run out of groups, and then and how do we decide which ones? Just because somebody runs an event and it's an early in the year event, we have money in the account, and so we say, sure, we'll sponsor this event. And then there's very worthy causes that we'd like to support coming in at the end of the year, and we have this this $10,000 or $15,000 budget, and now we can't support any of these events. And we pick and choose which ones we give to, and I would prefer that we can blanket everybody, we can give everybody the same offer if it's not money.
Can I ask, are you suggesting then that we get rid of this policy or add in a section that says in-kind donations that the town will offer communities or groups? Is that what you're saying? I just wanna
Yeah,
see
so
how that fits in with this particular policy in motion.
I would like to make it just an in-kind donation policy, and that's all that then it's cut and dried for us, then we don't have sponsorship, right? We don't give money, cause that's sort of the struggle. We're gonna give this group 500, we're giving this group, this hockey tournament $2,000, we're gonna give, like we make, decisions based on either a presentation or, I feel like we're up and down with what we donate to and our reasons sometimes why, like we don't have a good criteria. I mean, I agree that having this policy will give us that criteria, will make it easier. You know, even if we decide, okay, we're gonna have a budget for it. But I still think we're gonna struggle with running out of funds, having other people still come forward and wanting it, and I don't know if that's not necessarily fair. They won't feel like that's necessarily fair.
Can, just like to ask, cause we do some sponsorships and I know we're gonna wanna continue to do some of them. For example, the golf tournament, we're a sponsor.
But we're also
Co-host.
Co-hosts. So it's our event. It's a little bit different. You know, like we can probably justify that in the way that it's our event. We're co-hosting it. It's not another organization.
So, what would you do with High Prairie Rodeo?
I would advertise them for them just like anybody else. I don't think any of these events really need, our little sponsorships. And I just struggle with the fact that these are not our personal funds. These are tax
Okay,
dollars.
but you didn't answer my question. What would you do with the High Prairie Rodeo when they come and ask for a sponsorship? Would you say no?
If we changed our mind on what we do and we have a policy, I would say this is our policy.
We don't
Basi-
sponsor.
And but this is how we sponsor in kind, and this is what we will give you, and this will how we'll help you and how we will support you.
Okay. What would you do with Treaty 8? No sponsor.
No sponsor. They're not nonprofit.
Okay. I'm just going through some of the major items that we sponsor. Senior Citizens we sponsor. Senior Citizens no more. We would not be sponsoring senior citizens.
I
Any
don't
donation?
even remember what we did for them last year, but I mean, I would say, you can keep on going through
I
the
can
list.
go through the list. Basically, what I'm saying is this what we're looking towards? We are not sponsoring, and I don't have a problem.
That
If
is
this
just
is
my
what you're going to
opinion.
say.
That's just my opinion.
No, it's actually, if Quentin was here, I think he would be really backing you up. And in some sense, fine, if that's what council decides, then I think that we should let everyone know, advertise it or say something. In 2016, we are not sponsoring anybody. No grants, no nothing.
Well, we're not
Because
talking
what
about
are
grants right now.
Grants are different? Grants are different.
Well, one of my struggles with sponsorships for us is that it is about advertising our name. People come to you and say, here, would you like a sponsorship opportunity, right? You would like an opportunity to advertise your name at my event. I'm gonna give you some free tickets, I'm gonna invite, you're buying something.
But
You're not-
advertising
grants-
is an administration. It's nothing to do with us, whether we advertise or not in an event.
Then why is it in our council budget? This is advertising.
Because most of it is the council meetings, right?
Advertising council meetings. It's not advertising at an event.
Right, but I'm just saying that this really is advertising, right? So,
It's not advertising, he has an advertising budget to advertise in events or whatever. We don't, we don't have it.
right, but I'm saying that grants is a whole other issue and
Okay,
probably another,
let's not do grants then.
probably another topic
Yeah.
and we probably all feel a little bit differently about some of the grant situations. But it isn't an opportunity to advertise us, and it's not an opportunity for, like I say, they're gonna give us something for our sponsorship, right? That we just, if it's the food bank or the chamber, they come because this organization is struggling to exist. They're coming around looking for grants. They're looking for grant monies.
Okay.
Again, I don't necessarily feel that I agree with everybody else on the grants either, but that these are two separate policies.
Alright, so sponsorship. All we're talking about is Do we want this sponsorship policy or not?
Right, that's what
We're not talking about how much we're gonna give or who we're gonna give, do we want this policy or not?
And or maybe some amendments to it, because I think what Councillor Rose was talking about, maybe adding, the in-kind portion of what we would do for organizations, or maybe scrapping what you suggested, scrapping the sponsorship part and just doing the in-kind part. So that's another option, so.
And that's something I can agree with. We have to have some kind of a policy, and I'd rather see us help these organizations by way of advertising on the signs but people are complaining about their taxes being high. So why are we giving their overly priced taxes away to different community groups? I mean, what we could do as a council instead is try to encourage the Elks or the Friendship Center to open their bingo hall again, so that these groups can get their funding that way. Without the bingo halls, that's why we're getting all these asks. Council should not be giving away hard-earned tax dollars to different community groups. I'm sorry, we shouldn't be the ones picking and choosing who gets the money and who doesn't, and some guys can get X amount of dollars and another group will only get a little bit simply because they didn't make a good presentation.
So, I can sort of get along with that. The one thing I have is, where's the difference with the things that we know we wanna support, like the golf tournament? And I agree, it is a little different because we're co-hosting it, but where is that money coming from in the budget so that we can make sure we've got it there? And is that coming out of our sponsorship dollars, right, isn't it? Is that, I can't remember now. And I know I should know this stuff, Kelly, but I can't remember.
No, thanks.
This policy is for non-town sponsored events.
Oh, non-town.
It's to distinguish town-sponsored events from the issuance. So I would say that this is for non-town events.
So an event that the town is involved in.
Wouldn't fall under this. This is for, if we're not part of it, then it's an outside body that's coming to us and asking for sponsorship.
So we could have a small line item that allows us to
Well, if we're gonna
support events that we're sponsoring, or that we're.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna do a barbecue, a staff appreciation barbecue, we should have money for that.
Yeah, that's what I was sort of getting at. Needs to be some money in there for us to do
But
those things.
that's a different,
That's a different line item, and it wouldn't come out of this pot then. This is the.
So, I know the treasurer and I have talked about sponsorship and the financial support donations policy. And you don't think there's a big difference between the two, right,
Between the two.
No, there's not a difference between two.
Mr. Chair?
Okay.
If you can.
So did you wanna speak on that, Herb? The difference between these two coming up, the next one?
There really isn't a difference between sponsorship and grants. In both cases, you're giving the money away, you're not really getting anything in return. Let me make a distinction between the advertising and promotion account. As Mayor Cox pointed out, the advertising and promotion account is for town-sponsored events, town-sponsored advertising, town-sponsored promotion. And that's where the golf course or that golf tournament, that's where the expenditures would get booked in that account, advertising promotion. Sponsorship like the Elks Rodeo, well, we get passes from the Elks Rodeo, so I mean, we do get something of value from them, so you can almost book that in the promotion account if you wanted to. It's when you don't get anything in return. For instance, somebody just like Miles for Millions or something like that, where somebody's doing a walkathon, you don't get anything in return, but you sponsor them. That's just almost like a grant. Pardon?
Stars, that's a grant.
Stars, yeah, Stars is grant. But it does get booked. It gets booked in grants. So there's very little difference between the two. And you could have it all in one account. If you want to have it in two separate accounts just to keep track of it, that's fine. I don't mind. I've got an account already created. There's a solution for it. The policy is good for sponsorships. You got one for financial donations for the grants. So one for sponsorship, since you've got that other account, $15,000 allocated for it. Some sort of policy is good. But even if you didn't have a policy, you could always address it as it comes up. If somebody is requesting sponsorship, goes to council, council makes a decision. That's the way it's always been done. We've never had a sponsorship policy in the past, just the financial donation one. So, and as Mayor Cox pointed out, the $15,000 that's in that account was just taken from what was in the grants account already, so it's not new money being added to the budget. Not, like it's not a really big deal.
Did you have something to add?
I think we should flesh out this policy more and explaining what the in-kind is. Like, we need to say what we're going
Yeah.
to do in kind.
Where it says the town sponsors events through financial contribution. That's why it's tough to just sort of approve this policy unless we're saying, yes, we're going to give money. If we're gonna say, yes, we're gonna have an account, we're gonna give money, then this policy's good. If we're gonna change our mind about the actual giving of dollars, then we have to reword the policy to say what we're gonna give. And and then the financial contribution, support to a specific event, donations of items for silent auction and prizes, like those things just wouldn't apply if we said there will be no money, but this is our policy.
Go ahead.
Just a question of curiosity though. There's a Treaty 8 event tournament coming up, and we expect the committee members to be here. There is nothing being given to the town, but in terms of the benefits to the town, it's huge. I mean, everybody knows businesses benefit from it.
Businesses benefit, yes.
Yeah, big time. So it's not intangible. You
The
can't
average
really
resident
measure it.
doesn't benefit.
Yeah, so something like that, where would you place that? It's not grants, but where would you place that? I throw this in because it's one of those things that
It's gonna come, and that's gonna be the crunch. When they come, that's gonna be the crunch. You guys are gonna have to decide whether we're gonna support this or we're not gonna support it.
And
Are
again,
we
I'm
going to
saying
sponsor it or we're not gonna sponsor
we
it?
can support them, and we can advertise, and we can welcome, and we can offer services of a counselor or a mayor to, opening ceremonies. We can do a lot of things where we support the events, but can we justify using taxpayers' dollars to hand over to, as a sponsorship, which I really think is advertising and self-promotion.
See, I don't see any difference between that and the Elks Pro Rodeo.
I do, and I don't think we should be donating to either. As far as cash, right? I just don't think. I think if we were extremely lucrative community and we had the money that some of these communities did have in reserves, maybe we could look at it differently, and maybe then we could see if the citizens want us to donate to all these events. And I do think that the citizens of High Prairie want to see all these events happen. But do they want us to use their tax dollars to sponsor them? And then how much? And by how much, or what would be our caps? I mean, a lot of them come, they come with their list of, if you want to be a gold sponsor, if you want to be a title sponsor, if you want to be we have all these choices to make. And with each one you get advertising, you get tickets, you get things for it. And this is where, I really think that it's about self-promotion. And if they're looking for a grant because they're in need, that's the difference with the grants. It's like Starks coming here saying, we do not operate unless municipalities put money in our pockets. We can't fly into your community and save lives. To me, that's an important grant to sponsor. Shouldn't use that word, sorry. That's where we should offer our assistance.
Go ahead, Gary.
I throw this in because, and I use Treaty 8 because I did meet with them, and when they describe the benefits the town gets, how huge that weekend is, and the option for them to take it elsewhere, and then the consequences for them not having it here. So you weigh that against the background of how much is given to them. So if you have a cap, let's say of $10,000 for the year, and that amount is finished, and then you don't have to issue it anymore, then you would have given something to those communities. The town has benefited. You have a cap, it's reasonable, you can live with it, and then move on.
But we can't give to everybody if we run out of money, right?
Yeah,
So
but
then we have to say no to some people.
because that's where you draw the line, because.
And what if Treaty 8 doesn't put in their application in time and then we can't give them money? We're still in the same situation where we have to say, sorry, we ran out of money. Because everybody we gave to was in January.
Well, I'd rather do that, but.
Could, I'm just wondering, I think a lot of, again, I hear what you're saying, Debbie, with trying to say, we're having those discussions, which ones would we support, not support, and it does take a lot of time in council. But there are some good benefits to the town, and it's, I'm gonna say town businesses, and you could debate on whether the businesses, if they're doing well, whether that benefits the people of the town that aren't business owners, and you could have those discussions too, cause whether that helps everybody or just the businesses is debatable. But I'm wondering if we could change this policy a little bit so that we could all live with it and say, town sponsors events through donation of items, in-kind donations and possibly financial money going to them. That kind of way we cover all of those things that we offer and then list in kind what we could offer in kind, and it would be the things that you've been talking about. We can put it on the sign, we could put it on our website, that kind of stuff.
But,
We have it there as
it's there,
you were gonna
exactly,
say.
I was gonna say.
Put another bullet there and say electronic signage, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's what I was getting
But
at.
that is that clause right there.
Where?
And where the town sponsors events, and if you want, you can flip it and say through the donation of items and or financial contributions.
Well, but when you say donations of items, that's a concrete item. What Debbie's talking about is in kind.
And you can put in there on that sentence too.
That's what I was saying.
Or in kind, so it fleshed that out a little bit, but that's where it is.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And
put that in
in-kind
there.
services.
And it leaves us, well, I guess, it's one of those things where we're delaying the decision on a particular event, whether or not we want to sponsor it, as opposed to closing the door now. That's all I'm saying, cause
Yeah,
we
you
may
still gotta
want to
maintain it.
sponsor this, something in the future.
And I think for 2016, if this is the way the council wants to go, someone should put it on the agenda and say that in 2016, no sponsorship money will be allocated and that's it. But it's a little, again, it's late now to do something like that. You should be notified.
Okay, Councilor Carey.
I don't think it's too late, and I could support this policy if it didn't have anything to do with financial donations. Again, we go back to how much. This guy only gets $100 simply because he just wrote a letter and it's not a well-written letter, and these other guys get $2,000 because they come in here with a big crowd of people and all kinds of different things to try to entice us to give them more money. We have donation bags here, we've got the sign, we don't have to fork out cash. And my question is, are we trying to lower our budget or aren't we? $15,000 is $15,000. Just because we spent it last year doesn't mean we need to spend it this year. Are we looking for efficiencies or aren't we? We're asking other people to do it, but we're not willing to do it as a council. So I cannot support this if it has financial dollars tied to it.
The policy doesn't.
Financial contributions to support a specific event. It's written right in the policy. I don't want to have anything to do with financial sponsors. We can help these community groups other ways. We don't have to be giving them tax dollars. If we're gonna ask everybody else to watch their budget, we need to watch ours. We need to find efficiencies. This is an efficiency. It's a $15,000 efficiency. Are we or aren't we trying to find efficiencies?
Call the question.
Okay. All of those in favor? Opposed? Defeated.
I'll make a motion to direct administration to bring back a in-kind policy that does not include financial contributions. That way we can help our groups, and we can have a policy on the books to state that we're not giving away money. We can help them in other ways. We can give them our donation bag that we have. We can help them on the signs. We can send representatives. So I'd like to direct the administration to bring back this policy, but without any financial implications.
Okay,
Would you read that back, please?
To direct administration to bring back an in-kind policy that does not include financial contributions.
And lists specific in-kind services, I guess,
I'll accept the friendly amendment.
that we can provide.
all right, we've just discussed this an awful lot, so I don't know if we have much more, cause it's a new motion, but is there any discussion on it? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried? So we go to the next agenda item with sponsorship requests.
Make a motion that council receive for information both the High Prairie Fish and Game Association Sportsman Show and the July 1st celebration and demolition derby and the Triangle Hoedown for information.
There's actually two on the next page too.
And I'll include the next two as well, for information.
All right. Did you wanna speak on that?
No,
No, okay,
no, because the policy supports that, so the policy is out of the way.
yeah. Any discussion on these?
I think,
Oh, sorry.
I speak against the fact that we are not supporting these. Treaty 8, especially Treaty 8 First Nations, they bring, as again, a lot of business into this town. The businessmen pay their taxes, and here's a method or a recognition that we support the businesses of this town by supporting the Treaty 8. And I also think that the High Prairie Agriculture Society's 2015 Spring Amateur Rodeo involves a lot of young people, and by not supporting that, we are basically saying that as a community that we were so gung-ho to say, yes, we're family oriented, and here's an organization that is trying to do something for young people, and no, we're not supporting that either. So I'm disappointed that we are not supporting the volunteers of these organizations that work hard to present these and provide things for the community, for the residents of this community. So that's, you all know what I feel about the sponsorship, and that's all I'm saying. I'm disappointed.
I hope we can feel like we shouldn't say we're not supporting them, that we still are supporting them, but maybe just in a different format. And that we can maybe be a little more active in making sure that everybody that does come in for, you know, that we know about these events and they want some sort of support, that we make sure that we do what we can to support them. And I just would prefer that we didn't say we're not supporting these events.
You're not
We're
supporting
not giving
these
them
events
money.
the way that they have requested. So I would say you're not supporting them for what their request is. You could word it any way you want, but this is what I see.
Just to speak on the Treaty 8, last year I remember that we weren't gonna sponsor Treaty 8 because they didn't have their paperwork in for the deadline for the grant. So we extended it, there was a whole bunch of discussion on it that, just how important it is, so last minute we give them the money. So, and we also told them that, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were also notified that in order to get grant dollars, they need to fill out the application form, and they should be doing it next year. last fall. We went through the whole deal with advertising through the papers, everything else. If you wanted grant money, put your application forms in. Where were all these application forms? We extended the deadline. What more could we have done as a council back then to support these groups, but they couldn't be bothered to fill out the paperwork. They're coming now to ask for the dollars.
Okay, I know we've just gone over a lot of this, so I'll ask for a vote. All of those in favor of receiving for information? Opposed? Alright, and we are moving back to 2015 budget deliberations.
I'd like to make a motion that the 2015 budget be amended to reflect the 2014 actuals minus the amortization of 2014, or replaced, that the amortization be replaced with 2015 values. And that the natural gas cost be excluded from the budget expenditures.
Okay, I just wanna make sure she's got it first, and then we'll let you go.
The 2015 budget be amended to reflect the 2014 actuals minus the amortization, minus,
Reflect actuals and that the
and that the
amortization.
amortization be replaced with 2015 values, and that the natural gas cost be excluded from the budget expenditures.
And they be brought back to the March 24th meeting.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if I just might say, this is an awful lot. Tomorrow the agenda's supposed to go out. It's just too much. It's gonna be very difficult.
It could come as an addendum to the agenda on Tuesday.
Okay, so we'll keep the motion and then we can talk about how to make it. And you had
I would just ask for a friendly amendment to make sure we are also including the COLA. And if there was any pay increases, that way our employees don't lose out on their COLA.
Did we pay the
They already have.
yes, but I think what you're saying though is that if we don't include the COLA, that means that there's gonna have to be cutbacks in other areas, right? And a 2% cut from all the other areas in some percentage.
Well, I'd like to see what that actually translates to first, before let's see what he brings back. And then, if we have to, I mean, that's,
Fair enough.
we can add it in, but I'd like to see what it's gonna look like.
Okay, you've got the motion, good.
I
Any
do.
other discussions on that to see what it would look like? Good.
May I find out from, do you understand is the motion clear now? Because sometimes I get emotions like when we talk and you feel like it's not been clear enough, so I just wanna make sure that it's something that you are, that,
So you want us to use the actual wage expense for 2014 That's what the motion's saying. Saying use the 2014 actuals for all the line items except for amortization, which would be 2015 items, and then exclude the natural gas purchase.
So put in your best bet on natural gas, whatever you had for 2015, use it.
Well, I'm okay with the natural gas. What I'm saying is the wages, because people talked about it
Yeah.
already.
Not yet, just use what you've got for there. And if you have discussions on, you're saying, we need X number of dollars to cover wage increases, you can discuss with administration between you, okay, where do you think we can get some of this? Perhaps the airport, there's 100,000, let's move that into
Well, that's,
administration. So you might be doing some,
the motion's not saying that. The motion's saying use 2014 actuals for all your line items except for
didn't say anything about
amortization.
line items. I just said use the 2014 expenditures.
Well, you have to be a little more specific, because we work with line items.
Department. Use the 2014 department expenditures. Actual department expenditures.
Well, the best we could do is bring you a summary, because,
Okay.
there's not enough time to fill in each line item.
No, like I think, and I'm gonna make an assumption here, I know what you're saying, so correct me
Yeah.
if I'm wrong. But it's saying like legislative services was 363, not the specific line items, but just rolled up into the statement of accounts saying those amounts? Is
That's
that,
what,
Yeah. And I'm actually surprised when you say you won't be able to do the line items, because how are you gonna get the roll up if you don't put the line item in?
we'll be working backwards. You'll have the departmental expense, and then you'll have to figure the line items out after that.
Wouldn't it be easier to put, just asking, wouldn't it be easier to put the line item amount in and then you just roll up? But I leave that in your hands.
No. Just so that I can give council an idea. We don't change the interim budget in the accounting program until the final budget's approved. So, right now in the accounting program, it just says the interim budget amounts for 2015. And the only time I go in there and change them is when the final budget's approved. And what Mayor Cox is asking for here is almost a complete rewrite of the individual line items from what they are to what they were in 2014. That's quite a bit of work.
and so I guess at this point it would, really what we're looking at, if I'm saying, is just what is the difference in the totals? What would that look like at the end of the day, you know, and possibly it would be good if we understood that, if we know what salaries were and we know what COLA is, what is the increase? Because that might be something we'd like to add or improve on the next day. So we really, the way I'm taking this is you're almost getting three options to look at and approve. One would be an option where you have the 2014 budget actuals minus the two things that you said. The second option would be 2014 minus those two plus the COLA is what you're saying. And then the third one would be I guess what we're working on as what's been presented. So those three options, and then we have to decide on Tuesday. Is that sort of where we're going? Having some options to look at?
Yeah, and if you don't do them by line item, you can do them on an Excel spreadsheet.
So given the way the information is going to be presented, do you think that you'll be able to approve the budget? Or you might decide at that time whether the information is just too truncated for any
No,
conclusions?
I think that if you have it by department, I think that'd be the line items that's between you people to figure out.
No, that's fine, I'm just.
But by department, yeah,
Yeah.
you should have a good idea of where we're at.
Basically, the statement of operation sheets, maybe with, and I'm seeing that we've got one already done,
Mhm.
and maybe having the two other ones, and then we can look at which one would work best.
You've got enough information in that, in that motion?
We certainly didn't capture what I was saying in that motion. So, but anyways, that, we've got one motion on the floor, so we can debate that, and then we can go back on other things.
Did you wanna add your, maybe add a
Who's
friendly
gonna add
amendment?
a second motion?
Okay.
So we'll get a different version. Let's make this quite clear so that it doesn't get confusing.
Any thoughts, any other thoughts?
Call the question.
Call the question, okay.
Wanna read it back?
That the 2015 budget be amended to reflect the 2014 actual department expenditures, and that the amortization be replaced with 2015 values, and that the natural gas cost be excluded from the budget expenditures and be brought back to the March 24th meeting.
I'd like the natural gas to be the 2015 value.
The 2015 natural gas cost.
Okay?
Okay.
Do you want to say by department totals? Do you want any of that in there?
No, I think I got an idea what you're looking for. You don't have to worry about the natural gas purchase cost, cause that's up in the revenue section anyways for 2015.
Good.
But just to let council know, you've already got the actuals right in front of you in the summary. So it's the 2015 budget using the actuals is gonna look a lot like the 2014 actual column.
But this will give us the surplus or the operating deficit, and it'll be able to, at that point, make a determination of what the mill rate calculation would be. Because we will have the actual numbers
Well,
required.
But just so the council understands, the mill rate is determined based on the tax revenues that are required. That's all. It doesn't, mill rate has nothing to do with the expenses that the town has, it's the tax revenues that are budgeted for.
Aren't the tax revenues based on expenses?
No, well, yes, they are. They are based on, somewhat on expenses. It depends really how much the town wants to make and as far as surplus goes. But in determining the mill rate, you simply take the tax revenue required divided by the assessment base. That's the calculation. So when you do that, it has nothing to do with expenses.
So, Mr. Chair, let me help with this. So, if you take the 2015 revenue and you take the holding the line expenses, your deficit is about 715,000, right? So that comes down from about 1.1 million to 715,000. So you have the answer here. Now, I think what he's saying is that that number there does not translate into your objective to further reduce your tax revenue. So you've already reduced it by 200,000, and you're looking at reducing it by $1 million. So you have about 150,000 to go. So you may need to make a motion to further reduce your tax revenue by 150,000, while at the same time keeping to holding the line.
If he does the chart, we'll have it in front of us.
Yeah,
And I
then
think it will help
further
us
help you.
make that. So let's do the one, just the way it was laid out.
Okay.
And he'll bring it.
Yeah, because like
By
it is a
department.
good point though, that the tax revenues
Mhm.
don't change because they're asking for the same tax revenue in
Right.
2015 that they asked in 2014, so that's not going to change the mill rate at all. that mill rate is gonna stay exactly the same, because we're asking for, in our 215 budget, the exact same tax dollars that we asked for in 2014.
But
We may
made
not
a
need
mo-
it though.
You made a motion to reduce your tax revenue by the exact amount by which you increase
Oh.
your utility rate, so you have
Yes.
So that'll
200
be in there.
so you have
That'll be,
200,000 already there.
Yeah.
And so further through your analysis, you may want to reduce another 150,000 from the tax revenue in order to be inching towards your 1 mil.
Yeah.
Because that's about 350,000, 1 mil.
And I think what we're talking a
Yeah.
lot about is reducing that comes out of the surplus. And that's what you were mentioning, right? We can reduce that amount to anything that we want,
Yeah.
but at the end, the tax revenue, but at the end of the day, I mean, we don't even have to charge taxes this year if we wanna go to an extreme and say, we're just gonna give everybody a free year and we're going to cover it out of our operating expenses, or out of our surplus, sorry. So we could do that, right? That's our prerogative, but knowing what we wanna have as a surplus at the end of the year is where we need to sort of agree on, and then that'll help us with mill rate and operating stuff. All right, any other discussions on it? Okay, all those in favor? All right. Did you wanna make another motion?
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion to add to that, let me word this right, to the proposed budget, determine what the extra costs are for salary and wages, based on COLA and step increases.
Are we ready for discussion?
I just wanna hear it, and I'm gonna make sure we go back.
Right here. The council add to the proposed budget, and then I have the word determine what the extra costs are for salary and wages based on COLA and step increases.
Is that clear?
Yeah,
And
step
that-
increases is about 50,000, COLA is about 36,000.
Okay, so we already know what it is, it's roughly 80,000 kind of thing.
I can provide the answer, the
Okay.
specific answer.
And it's in those detail reports, you've got the 2014
I
actual
get
wages
what
and
I'm-
2015 budget.
I just want to look
See
at
it.
it, Herb, because I think
Yeah.
once we see what
Yeah.
this option is and what this option is and what the differences are,
Yeah.
we'll see if there's anything significant in there, so. That's all, I just wanted to know what that number is without going back and digging for it, cause I know it's in there. It's just digging it out.
Yeah.
So the step increases are the increases that each person gets for a service, like a yearly increase, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, we wanted to increase it by 200,000, we went about 4 steps, and so we went about something.
Can you hear him?
Something close to $50,000 per year when we move everybody.
So is this related to the wage survey?
Yes,
So this is different than the normal increases that people would get on the existing grid, as it is. You're changing the actual grid again.
oh,
I'm kinda shocked you guys are still here, I'm
no,
sorry.
when you approve the salary, the wage,
Survey.
the wage grid, the wage survey, it moved the salary by 7 steps. Because we did not implement all of that in 1 year. So that steps allows people to move every year for about 4 or 5 years.
Okay, so is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
Is the next step
Step.
of implementing the wage survey?
Yes, yes.
This is not the normal, not the normal increase that everybody gets for working another year. We're talking about a different amount of money.
I'm confused.
No, yeah.
No.
The wage, there's only one wage grid.
There's one wage grid, but it's changing every year, isn't it?
If there's a COLA increase, then the 2% will stretch it. But, okay, I'll let head.
Okay, there are two components to an increase. One is the cost of living, which is 2% across the board. And the other one is the step up on the wage grid, which everybody's entitled to after they've finished another year and they get a satisfactory performance appraisal. That's it. And the wage review, all the wage review did was just adjust those grid numbers.
And we said, didn't we, that we would implement that over a period of, what, 3 years or whatever?
4 or 5 years.
4 years, I think.
Yeah.
4 years.
So,
So isn't that another increase that, like if we kept the same grid as we did last year, that would be a different amount than what it would be by increasing this survey?
It would be for the people who were at the top of their grid. I'll give you an example. I was at the top of the old grid, now I'm in the middle of the new grid. So upon a satisfactory performance appraisal, I'm entitled to step up one more on the grid, under the new grid. Under the old grid, I was at the maximum. So that kind of.
So did we adopt, did we adopt the full grid, or did we just say, no, we're only adopting year one, or are we implementing this grid over 4 years?
I think what you're asking is, we had a grid last year, and it's the exact same grid this year, except for the 2% COLA increase.
Okay.
Is that correct? That's what I'm understanding. So the grid hasn't changed from one year to the next, it's the same grid, except the 2% COLA that's been added, and then if somebody moves up, they get a raise for an increment and a raise for the 2% COLA. So they get, in essence, 2 raises.
2 raises, right.
That's what we approved on, right?
You can view one as a merit raise and one as the cost of living.
Yes.
Why did we say we wanted to implement it over 4 years?
Cost of 200,000. And so if you implemented it in 1 year, then the cost would be 200,000. If
So-
you stretch it, so there's 50,000.
If they were on this grid, and like Herb was at the top, if we moved them to the top of the new grid, it would have been an increase of 200, but because we moved him to the middle, above where he was before, but in the middle, he's still got room over the next 4 years before he's at the top of the grid again.
So the grid shifted and he stayed where he was, and now he's got space to advance.
That's the over 4 years part.
Okay.
Okay, so there was the motion was just to find out what that amount is in a formal way so we can look at it. And we already know roughly that it's 86,000, you said, or 87,000. So, but anyways, if you can bring it with that, that would be good. All those in favor? All right. So, any other discussion? Motions? We're getting close to the, and that's the end of our agenda, so that would be bringing us to the, oh, sorry.
Just a quick one here. So what are you doing with your Saturday meeting? Because it's still
Good
within your budget scenario, so it's up to you guys.
Yes, very
I
good.
I think we didn't
No,
go
I-
legislative budget, if we wanted to discuss that.
What's that?
We had, on one, agenda legislative budget, was that on last night's? I don't see it on tonight's.
I think that was on last night.
Yeah,
We
but we
always
didn't-
have Saturday.
But we didn't get to it,
No.
and you're sick.
Do you, I'm thinking to myself, just as an example, does anybody want to sit with the line items and just put some numbers in and say, this is what I think the budget should be for the legislature, circulate it to councillors, let them look at it and decide if they feel that that's adequate or not, staying within the 2014 actions.
Sure.
But just looking at I see, cause there is a big difference between the two. There's, 113,000, but that was because of the skate park money in there?
Yeah, have to sort of take out some of that grant
So-
money that's.
Yeah, staying within the 2014, but I mean, if it's gonna go down, be reasonable. It's only circulating and saying, here's what I think it could be. If anybody else wants to go through and do it, circulate theirs, and maybe we can come to a meeting of the minds and say, look, this is the numbers we want.
Except you can't do it through email. It's a public, right? You can't do it through email, it's a
No, we're
public.
having
We're
a-
not,
we
we're
have a
not
Saturday
approving
meeting.
it. We're just discussing.
Oh, yeah, a workshop, yeah, you can do a workshop, you just can't come to any agreements
We
through
won't come to
emails.
any agreement, and here's what I
Okay.
think our budget
Just a
should be.
time saving.
One can say, well, this is what I should be. And I'm certainly sure his will be a lot different than mine, 'cause I like money. He's gone, I see, I can say it, oh, it's on camera.
That's an interesting point that the mayor brought up. If I use the
These are
2014 actuals, legislative services department totals 363,000. 2015 budget is 250,000.
I'm sure it'll be about 250.
Yeah.
Well, how will it be 250? If you want me to use the 2014 actuals, it's gonna be what it is for 2014, 363,000.
Well, then,
I think in that case, you move the 250 over to
Yeah, it's
replace.
not in the resolution,
no,
so.
no, go ahead and do it, but I'm certainly sure if we're not, if we come back and say, well, we're taking 100,000 out, I guess you guys got another 100,000 to play with.
But it's a skateboard park. So you can't use that.
Well, no, what,
What he's saying
What
is
she-
the motion didn't say that.
He's pointing out if you got a motion, stick to the
That's
motion.
right.
That's what he's stuck with us,
Yeah,
so.
but if we come back and say, well, in our department.
Drop
we're
ours to
using-
100,000.
so we need to make a motion to cancel the meeting on Saturday then.
No, we're still doing it.
wants
Well,
to-
that's not what I'm hearing. That's not, I'm hearing that we're not gonna meet.
Just
There's
through
several
email.
of us
And
not
we
gonna
can't
be
make a
here.
motion anyways, cause our agenda's done, so we're just
Yeah.
talking now.
Once the agenda's over, according to our policies. the
But you have to
meetings.
adjourn the meeting, don't you,
No.
officially?
When the last item on the agenda is completed.
Well,
I believe that's
yeah.
what's been reiterated many times.
Yeah, but I think we need to, we made a motion that we're gonna have a meeting, so if we're not gonna have a meeting, we should rescind that motion. And while we're still here and doing it, I might not be right according to policy, but we need to rescind it and get it done.
So you wanna break policy to
Um,
cancel a meeting?
Well, do you wanna
I'm
have
sure-
a meeting that
I'm sure we
nobody's gonna
could-
show up with? I don't know.
Well, just nobody show up, and we're good, right?
I'm sure we could ask our CEO, what do we do in a situation like this? We have to follow policy, do we not?
We
What's
talked
the name
about
of the
meeting on
policy?
Saturday.
Do you remember what it's under? You have it with
Budget
It's
you.
in our
stuff.
procedural
That's
bylaw.
what we're-
Procedural bylaw,
I think
yeah.
we got it.
He's brought it up before, he's quoted it.
Yeah, that's right, when the agenda's done, it's done.
The last item on the agenda is complete.
Yeah.
The meeting is
Meeting's
finished.
end, doesn't matter what we want to talk.
So, to cancel this meeting, do we need an email from our mayor saying that we're gonna cancel this to administration? Do we need
If
any?
nobody shows up, there's no meeting.
If somebody shows up, then.
No quorum.
No, there's no quorum, it's a workshop,
Oh,
so
it's a
if the
workshop.
presenters are not here, the workshop doesn't go ahead.
Okay, so we're not having a meeting on Saturday. Nobody show up on Saturday. Can't stay at home, fight fire.